Hey, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment clip. Some morning wood. Man, there's so much to. A lot of thoughts this morning. A lot of thoughts. I'm gonna probably ramble a little bit. Probably rub some folks the wrong way. Probably be accused of loving Eddie Hearn, loving AJ, whatever. The big story, obviously, going on. Trying to finish my breakfast. AB style morning wood with them French fries. The reporting on the fight, the rematch, Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. I watched. I put the announcement, the December 7th announcement on my Instagram page. But while I was on Instagram, I started noticing, that Ruiz has not said anything, neither has the PBC. So immediately I'm like, okay, so it's a rift here. And Eddie Hearn had been saying, he mentioned a couple times, we're gonna pick the site. That's our job, and we will notify them where we'll be fighting. You might think that's disrespectful. Okay, maybe it is, but we'll get into all of that hopefully here in a couple minutes. So this showed me. Let's get into some facts. Okay, some of this crying and whining and when I start seeing deserves, so-and-so deserves, so-and-so should get, so-and-so should receive. Let's deal with the facts that we do know. And then maybe some of the emotion will come out of whatever. I'm already all over the place. To get the first fight, there was a short list, allegedly, of names for the first fight. So Ruiz and his team, I'm assuming Al Heyman is involved in this. They reviewed the contract. It's two fights. I mean, it's a rematch clause in it, and then there's some options to future fights on the zone. $4.5 million, $5 million, or whatever it was for the first fight. You double that in the rematch if you should win. Here's your money for the rematch. And then there's supposedly this clause in there, or this term in there that the A side, Anthony Joshua / Eddie Hearn / Matchroom, that they have final say or whatever on the site location for the rematch. And you already know it was something in there, because at the end of the fight, Eddie Hearn's first comment was, we lost here, we'll take it back home and do the rematch. You don't think he didn't say that because he had some reason, some grounds to say that, right? So, due to what was going on and the fact that they could have chosen someone else, I presume that Al Heyman and whoever else is involved and Andy Ruiz, they didn't fight back too much on, well, this second, the rematch money needs to be 3 times as much. You don't have much room. You don't have much leverage in that situation. We just got to take this fight before the next guy takes it. And they might have a lower number on the first fight than we do. So you take it. No shame in that. You win. Eddie Hearn doesn't come back and say, well, hey, hold up. We only giving you $2.7 million. They give them all their money. You get all 3 of the belts, 4 of the belts with that IBO in there. I'm assuming. Here's tonight's fight check. And then, we'll be in touch with this rematch decision. These are the facts. Like, I'm not twisting it. I'm not adding anything to nothing. that's kind of what we've been able to establish. So now what happens, they get up to this situation, it probably was heading for Cardiff or the UK. But this Dillian White situation happens, the BBOC, UCAD, something, and Rivas not being notified of this test, this positive test, and the fight going forward. Now Andy Ruiz and camp have a real situation, have a real concern, a valid reason to say, oh, we're not coming over. Oh, no, that's not happening. I respect that. You should try to do whatever. I said this before. They should have been doing whatever they could do to get what they wanted, as within the parameters of the agreement. Even if that is including, can we get 2 to 5% more, for the purse, whatever. You should be doing all of that. But at the end of the day, everything is already signed and agreed to. So, okay. So the Dillian White situation happens. Eddie Hearn probably already understands, I can't get this. If I try to have it over here, we got issues. So you go with this Riyadh, Saudi Arabia situation. Take this site fee or this whatever, the extra money to have the fight there in Saudi Arabia, and then you announce it. One, we don't know if he's just done this to get into the legal stuff that I'm getting ready to talk about. But you come out and you announce the fight and the date and the location, and they're gonna have this press conference today or tomorrow. And the Ruiz team is like, nah, we not doing that. Cool. That's kind of, and now we'll see. Now that they say they want more money, or is it it could be a number of different reasons why they object to it. Okay. So then then I took some time and read the findings for the Lennox Lewis and Hasim Rahman, how they got that rematch done. And there was an injunction that forced the rematch. Now, there's nothing that can make Ruiz get in the ring, actually climb into the ring. There's nothing to do that. But you can be on the sideline. You can be kept out of the ring, of any ring, providing your services. I'm going to say this and try to sum up this whole Hasim Rahman, Lennox Lewis situation. One thing that I noticed after 25 minutes of reading this stuff, it's not rocket science. It's not Mandarin. It's not Russian. But you really need a whiteboard to sit here and build a timeline they've covered everything. And this is kind of what's so why the contract between Ruiz and Eddie Hearn is like, it's not, ironclad, enforceable, however you want to look at it. It's pretty standard. And there's been all these lessons learned over the years. To these agreements are pretty much, they are what they are. And I'm reading through this. They got it's a term to account for everything that could go wrong, for everything that could happen. There was information in there about payments that were made, training camp expenses. It was some situation where a $75,000 payment, Rahman did not want to accept it in one country that they went to go have this meeting in. They didn't want it in that country's currency. So they said, pay us the $75,000 when we get back to America. But then it came out later, like by them delaying that payment, did that void some part of the agreement? That would factor into whether or not the judge would give this injunction. there was parts of the agreement to where if you if you had any downtime due to injury, it extended the original agreement. It's almost like a soccer game. How they at the end of the game they go back and add all those minutes in to what would have been missed. Like they don't call timeouts. I think you only have one timeout a half. But any stoppage in play, injuries and all of that stuff, it all gets added it just automatically gets added. There's nothing to argue about. It just gets added back on at the end of the game. In the regulation. It was agreements like that in here where if there's injuries sustained and you can't perform, then we don't need to come back and negotiate. It just transfers. Lennox Lewis had some kind of, he had him and Emmanuel Stewart were able to convince them that the fight needed to happen in X amount of time because of Lennox Lewis's career and injuries and wear and tear. He didn't have X amount of time it left, so he needed to fight within the next 12 months or something, or 6 to 12 months. And then they made a case of why. It's cool for Rahman. He's only 28 years old. He can make all this stuff up, all this time up, all this money up. But they were like, we got a set schedule and a set game plan to exit boxing, so we need this to happen now. And there was grounds for that. And the judge or the person making the decision, sided with that reasoning and that logic. So like I said, a lot of this stuff, this isn't about emotions and feelings and throwing stuff against the wall. This is all very seriously, logically sound and laid out. There's nothing to argue about. So in this particular situation, I mean, Ruiz is pretty much bound by what he's agreed to, what his advisor oversaw at that moment, and what looked good at that particular moment. Nobody's getting beat. Nobody's taking an L. Like I said, there were other people standing in line. Another thing, how the hell was it a disadvantage for? How was that a disadvantage or a part of Ruiz's argument that they took the fight on short notice? They were a more ready, a more prepared fighter because he just fought 5 weeks ago against Dimitrenko and blew him away. He even said it himself. He said in the lead up to the fight, Ruiz said he's been on the bench since like last October or something. I just went through a camp. I didn't get touched up in my fight against Dimitrenko, and I'm good to go. And that was one of the things that had me kind of sitting back like, oh yeah, that is a damn good point. So again, like I said, one thing, and I'm gonna get to this Twitter thing. It's dudes on Twitter mad about what Coppinger, Benson, and what some of these different guys are reporting, but they're telling you what the facts are. They're not telling you what you want to happen, like the reporting of the NBA. They're not telling you that they want LeBron and D Wade to, since they did it as the Heatles, they should go do it as the Cavaliers. They're not telling you what you want to hear. They're trying to base what they're reporting on what they do know, what they have confirmed, what is fact. So it's not about going out here and saying that who's the A side and getting into that silly argument. And it's not about saying that I think Ruiz should now get X amount of money. We don't need to go into none of that because all of that was already established. Plain and simple. If the gun would have been in the other hand, this is the same agreement that Heyman probably would have had for his half. It's something that's probably in place for Deontay Wilder. So, and then speaking of this Twitter thing, man, and it almost makes me want to shut down my account. I just want to know when the Ghostface album is coming out. I just want to know when Sky Zoo and this Sky Zoo and Pete Rock collaboration album is coming out. I just want to know when a new video drops for different artists that I really don't even want nothing to do with boxing Twitter. I could care less, to be honest. To sit here and watch people with talent, with insight, with passion, to sit here and watch dozens and dozens of tweets just go off into the Twitter sphere, or Twitterverse, and never accumulate and do anything for anybody but get 10 or 20 likes or, 8 retweets. But to sit here and hate on the dudes who earn a living, who are earning a living talking about boxing. And no one gets my point that do you realize that boxing scene, that CBS or Showtime, I think it was CBS, they actually bought boxing scene what was it, a year and a half ago, and paid good money for that site. But if I tried to get 10 of these brothers on Twitter and say, hey, let's do that at Bite Down Boxing, man, we can all stay consistent. We can do these, we can build these columns or these features. Let's sit down and harness this. Let's put it together and do something with it. Why would you sit here and have Twitter activity jumping on Twitter? Like, what does that do for you? But then to sit back and try to go to war with Benson and Coppinger and one another and people on the opposite side, or people supporting stuff on the other side of the street, who's the best this, the best that, the current this. How could people do that? Like, I don't want to put none of my thoughts on Twitter. I don't want to put none of my thoughts on, none of my original thoughts. I don't want none of that out there for free. That's damn near right now. Ezekiel Elliott's like, I'm not playing for $3 million when I should be making, I'm a top 3, top 2 statistically. I'm a top 2, top 3 back. I'm not going out here for that. Or Zion, this is like Zion Williams playing his sophomore year at Duke. That's what it's tantamount to, the amount of entertaining and or informative tweets and information that I see out there on boxing from everyday dudes. But I'm just going to sit here and have Twitter jumping for the people that own Twitter, for the people who get all types of revenue, ad revenue and whatnot off of Twitter. I'm going to go put my thoughts on there and keep. Okay. So it's crazy to me that people that are kind of that short-sighted, that you would go and expect Eddie Hearn to be short-sighted in his business. So and get ready to close this out. So how do we know, like I said, that he just did this just to mess this whole thing up and send it to the legal, like, you don't want to sign the fight? Cool. We just go to court. You get stripped somehow or whatever. You lose 18 months of your career. Let's do that. And this is I didn't comment on Ruiz's money situation, how he appears to be spending his money. I didn't comment on that because I'm counting his dollars. But what I'm seeing is, if he only got 4 million, 5 million, 5.5 million for the first fight, that's what the range I'm seeing. You fought in New York, taxes, state, all the, federal, state, local, performers tax, I believe is probably something that's in there. He didn't leave out of the building with that 5 million. Or if he did, it's a tax bill coming at some point. PBC got some kind of cut. Manny Robles got some kind of cut. It's that only goes what was actually left by the time he got to California. It only goes so far. So now I say all that to say, then we come back to the table and we're looking at, can you sit down for 18 months? Can you sit down for 24 months? Or do you have to go and take an advance or ask for an advance from the PBC, from Al Heyman? So I see all of this, that the Rabbits really got the gun, that Ruiz really calls the shots. I don't know if I agree with that. And that's my thing. Like, I'm rooting for boxing. I'm not rooting for Eddie Hearn or for Anthony Joshua or for Ruiz. I'm rooting for boxing to have a solid schedule, a meaningful fight at the end of the year. So, and like I said, I understand not wanting to go fight in Cardiff based on what we just saw. I think there's some countermeasures that you could put in place to keep an eye on some things and make sure everything is on the up and up. And also, we have to think that from the spotlight being put on this current situation, and there's still calls for the B sample, and there's still some legal stuff going on, that with the eye, with the spotlight shining on it, that maybe everything would be on the up and up. One other comment on that. We sitting here complaining about UCAD and all of this stuff right now. If you go to UCAD's site, they are suspending cats. They are suspending athletes for steroid use. So, I mean, it's not a cut and dry situation. With that, it needs some time for stuff to come out still, but it's not like that organization isn't enforcing, suspensions and catching people, and it's not like it's not doing its job. The situation here is that the timeliness on how the information comes back to us, and what's done behind closed doors, which is how they've set that process up, and the fact that in boxing, a man is getting ready to enter a ring with somebody who, some flag has gone up, and now the opponent is not part of the situation. I can halfway understand the explanation that, well, they do this privately because they don't want to. Partial information is almost as bad information. So I can see where they want to have some privacy, some confidentiality, and all of that. But if just because you offer the other team to come in and and participate in whatever hearing there is, that doesn't mean that they go run out and say what happened. I mean, you can have NDAs or something that everything in this room stays private. So anyway, man, like I said, I was gonna ramble a little bit. Again, who knows how this thing plays out, man? It's big money at stake. Anthony Joshua still has possibly, $150, $200 million worth of earning that's out there from this, moving from this fight. So you think Eddie Hearn isn't gonna do his due diligence in protecting that? And even if they were to lose this rematch, you don't think that they have some kind of contingency plan to still capitalize off of him before it's over with, before it's completely over? I think Frank Bruno has like 5 losses, 6 losses on his record. Like, do you think Anthony Joshua would be done at 21, 22-2? Unless he was just absolutely laid out. I mean, maybe you got to think about it, but just the widespread opinion that Eddie Hearn is just an idiot because you don't like him. Anthony Joshua is just an idiot because you don't like him. I mean, I just don't know how you disrespect the ops like that, knowing that they got so far. But like I said, man, this ain't about me sitting here praising these guys, but it's almost to a situation that to have the money printing machine that Joshua was becoming, to have it and not know how to protect, like they would have been a-holes to not have had this agreement, this rematch situation addressed properly. You saw Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn on the panel a couple weeks ago on the Chris Manning's podcast. They buddies behind the scenes, professional buddies. If he would have had a BS contract, Bob Arum would have texted him or called him behind the scenes and said, "Man, Eddie, are you that damn stupid?" Oscar De La Hoya would have contacted Eddie and said, "Man, what, you were that stupid? You were out here like that?" Like it's just not that simple, man. That because you dislike people that they're complete idiots at what they do in their field, their industry that they're involved in. That's just not the case. Yeah, he has his stumbles and his foray into the American boxing market hasn't gone perfectly, but he's still standing. They laughed at Heyman when he was paying. Bob Arum said, "You don't pay to put boxing on TV. You don't pay to do that." But a few years later, he's got 2 lucrative deals with Fox and Showtime. Like, sometimes people know what the hell they're doing. I've said too much. I probably lost people like it's 26 minutes and 25 seconds. I probably lost people 26 minutes ago. But that's that, man. Bite down boxing, man. Don't ever let them count you out. 1.